start, and that's good enough for me. We're going to start this week's
Baruch
learning.
Hashem.
For any of you who did not yet get the worksheets, I've actually put it on our group, on our WhatsApp group. Yep.
For those of you that can scan the code in the corner of the screen.
On the corner, in the corner of the screen, it says Talmud WhatsApp. On the top left corner, right? The top left corner up there, you can see that. And if you scan the QR code, you can join our WhatsApp group, where we have placed already the worksheets for this week. Kenai Nahara. All right. We are Omar Rav Huna. We are beginning a new concept. The truth is, it's somewhat based on the last concept. You're going to be asking me this week, didn't we already discuss these rules? And the fact is, some of them we did, some of them we didn't. Essentially, at this point in time, these rules that we discussed in the past, even though we went back and forth, sometimes there are rabbis that disagree, and that's what we're going to be dealing with this week. Okay, let's start right away without further ado. Omar Rav Huna. It is the sixth line from the top of the page on Kuf Vav Amud Beis, other known as 106B. All right, in the ancient Aramaic. Omar Rav Huna says, Rav Huna, who was a great sage at the time of the Talmud. Omar Rav, he says in the name of Rav, who was his teacher, Ta'am Eina Mekadesh. If you tasted, you do not make kiddush. Which, in other words, the second you eat, you no longer could make kiddush. Now, we learned in the past that you're not allowed to eat prior to making kiddush, but what happens if you either accidentally eat, or perhaps you decided you're angry at God and you ate anyways, right? Which you should never do. But what happens if you did? We're talking about after the fact. After the fact that you ate before Kiddush, says Rav Huna in the name of Rav, you are done. You cannot make Kiddush.
Whoa.
No Kiddush for you.
Oh.
Now, the good question. Yeah, it actually says over here in Rashbam, you should not make Kiddush the entire night. You should wake up the next morning, not eat yet, and make Kiddush before eating in the morning. That's what he says. Very interesting thing. We've actually learned this in a previous week about Havdalah, that they said if you tasted, you ate something before Havdalah, you know what you should do? You should wait till the next morning. What's going on? Oh, you're seeing if it works. All right. Does it work? Someone scammed the QR code. Okay, yes. Anyways. Yeah. So last week we spoke about that if a person ate before Havdalah, they tasted something before Havdalah, we said that they should wait till the next day in the morning before they eat and make Havdalah. There's something about once you eat, you messed it up. You're done.
Did we go over when
You messed it up.
starts when you can't eat and Havdalah?
Again, from when the obligation begins, if you ate anything, you need to wait till the next morning. Again, we had difference of opinions that we discussed last week regarding Havdalah. All right? You had a question on
that statement.
why does it doesn't say YouTube over here? We're not on YouTube.
I'm checking right now.
Yeah.
If you're in Minchal stuff,
Yeah.
it also says you have to wait till the next day. It's like it's a time, or it's like when you have to actually make Havdalah. Yeah, that was really.
Doesn't say.
Doesn't say anything.
Doesn't say. We'd assume once you're obligated to make Havdalah, then if you, instead of making Havdalah as you were obligated, instead of doing that, you ate something, then you need to wait till the next day before you eat in order to eat. Yeah?
It's live on YouTube.
All right. Can I know? Good. Where are we? All right. So that's what Rav Huna says. Rav Huna says the same thing applies to Kiddush. The same thing applies to Kiddush. Essentially, once you eat, you can no longer make Kiddush. Okay? That's it. Now we are going to go Bo'omine Rav Chona Bar Chinanam Rav Huna. Rav Chana Bar Chinano asks Rav Huna a question. Now, if you remember in the past, we learned Bo Minei is a tremendous keyword in the Talmud, which means we're asking an inquiry that is not relevant directly to the previous discussion, which means it's not a challenge, it's not a argument. It's a simply, well, what is it? Meaning it's a request for information. Right? Information necessary. What would be the wording today? Anybody can help me out over here?
Inquiry?
Yeah, inquiry.
An inquiry. Okay, an inquiry. You want to inquire what is exactly going on over here. However, you'd ask me, why did I start this week's Gemara from Amar Rav Huna if Bo Menei is an important keyword to tell you that we're kind of asking an inquiry and starting a new discussion? The answer is that usually Bo Menei is following a piece of information. So there's a piece of information we give you, usually, and based on that information, we're missing some concept, right? And therefore we ask, well, how do we fill the gap of this missing concept? And that is what Bo Minei is usually coming to do. So if you don't know the previous concept, you'd wonder, like, where does this question come from to begin with? It's not just a random question. It is on topic. Now, the thing is that without Rav Huna's statement was the basis of this question. Now, since it is the basis of this question, and it's not a major Gemara, like sometimes we learned a major Talmudic discussion, and then we had a Bo Minei. So you need a whole week to understand the whole discussion that the Bo Minei is based on, right? However, in this case, there is an exception. And that exception is that here you have a one-liner, which Rav Huna makes a statement, and based on the statement, we're inquiring to try to figure out a deeper detail within that statement itself. Does that make sense to you? Yeah? Can I know that? Good. So Bo Minei Rav Chana Bar Chinano Rav Huna. Rav Chana Bar Chinano asks Rav Huna as follows: Ta'am, if you ate something, if you tasted some, Mahu Sheyavdil, can he make Havdalah? Now, if you look carefully, Rav Huna's statement was regarding Kiddush. In a past Gemara, we learned about a person who said that this rule applies to Havdalah. However, here we're going to discuss this. Now, if I remember correctly, when we spoke about somebody about Havdalah, was it in the Gemara or was it one of the commentaries? Do you remember? It was in the Gemara itself that mentioned somebody that if they ate, they would not make Havdalah. Yeah? Huh?
One of the very first ones, from 208.
Well, it could be because we remember on 105a we had Ta'am Mavdil, right? I think there we had in the commentaries that it was saying that there are opinions that might disagree with this. So the Gemara did not discuss this yet, I don't think. Yeah. No, it's no, actually, we didn't have it. It was in the commentary. That's why I think I was getting confused as well. It was in a commentary. It was not in the actual Gemara. That's why the commentary was actually quoting this Gemara. And since the commentator was quoting this Gemara, we're wondering, well, this seems repetitive, but it's not really repetitive because the commentary brought this concept in an earlier Gemara to tell you the, what's it called? The, what's the word I'm using?
Citation?
No, to tell you the difference, the contrast. Remember, the Gemara said, we learned from there that if you ate something, we learned from a particular Tanaic quote, that if you ate something, you could in fact make Havdalah. We learned that was one of the Shmaminos. Remember we had 7 Shmaminos, one after the next? That was one of them, right? Now, why would we need to learn from a Tanaic source that if you tasted, you can still make Havdalah? Why wouldn't you be able to make Havdalah just because you tasted something? Why would I even think that that's a problem? Right? And that's why it was mentioned in the commentators that there is an opposing opinion, and that's why he's trying to tell you that. All right, so the Gemara itself didn't yet teach you this opposing opinion, and that's perhaps why we brought it here. Okay? Kedai Nahala. Where are we? Okay, so we asked him the question. He says, Rav Huna says this rule applies to Kiddush. If you tasted something, you should not make Kiddush. Rav Chana Bar Chinana asked, does this rule also apply to Havdalah? Amr Lei, he replied to him, Rav Huna replies to him as follows. Ani Oimer Ta'am Mavdil. I say that if you tasted, you in fact do make Havdalah. But Rav Asi Omar, Ta'am Eini Mavdil. But Rav Asi disagrees with me. Right? So here you have a very interesting culture here where he had a very strong opinion, but yet he quoted the opposing opinion because he felt it was unfair to his student that his student should think that this is a unanimous rule when it's not. So he basically says, I hold that if you ate something, you still make Havdalah. However, Rav Asi says, no, you don't. Yeah? Yeah, good. That's the whole question and answer to this bo minei. Now we're going to continue on to something else, which again, it's still on the same, it's still within the same discussion, but we're going to continue. Yeah.
So
I'm going to tell you a story. If you like hearing a story, we're going to tell you a story. Can I know how to?
Amar Ta'am Eino Mavdil means he doesn't. It means what he says that.
He says that if you taste, you do not make Havdalah.
Taste. So
remember, it's very
correct. Basically.
Correct. You have to remember that the Gemara essentially is a rule book. It's not a story book. So a lot of people, when they read it, they think that the Gemara is trying to tell them a story. But no, the Gemara is not trying to tell you a story. It's a rule book. So if it's not going to tell you whether he made Havdalah or didn't. That would be like reporting facts. The Gemara doesn't. Right. If there's a story, but you have to see in the Gemara, like we're about to read a story in the Gemara, where it clearly tells you it's a story, it words it in the fact that it's telling you a story, which means it's giving you information versus telling you rules. Generally, it's telling you rules unless there's something clearly that indicates otherwise. It's just sharing with you the rules of the game. All right? Makes sense? Can I know? No. You read the rest of the Gemara. Yeah. Can I know how to? Let's go. Sunday is always a difficult day for me because I always end up staying up late on Saturday night. And then I'm like,
why is that? You should be tired after Shabbos, but everyone gets kind of.
We should get you on the gut.
It should get me on what?
The gut.
I don't know what that means.
It's like this Yemenite leaf.
Yeah.
Gives you energy.
Yeah. Anyways.
He went to Kiryat Gat for Shabbos.
Yes. And by the way, many Bochrim this week are going to be going to Netivot.
Oh, are you coming?
I actually plan to. Rabbi Shammai actually said that he has to figure it out because he booked a house that's not yet, that he doesn't know if it's big enough yet for all the people that booked to come. No, it had enough for 15, but then 20 people wanted to come. Anyways, but I think I'm going to end up coming. And by the way, it would be the first time since I joined the yeshiva that I actually went on a Shabbaton. Rabbi Shammai made a whole bunch of Shabbatons. Rabbi Pasternak went a few times with his family. I never went. This would be the first time I've ever went to Shabbos with the Bochrim. I hope it will be a good experience for me and for you guys as well. I've never been to the Baba Sali.
Never went to Netivot?
Oh, it's an overnight trip we're doing?
Going for Shabbos.
You have to come.
2 nights?
Anyways, let's get back to the Gemara. It's going to be 3 levels up, not just next level. All right? Okay, now we're going to tell you a story.
3 levels. Yeah.
Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba. There was a person called Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba. Rav Asi. He went to the house of Rav Asi. As we just told you, Rav Asi himself says that once you taste something, you do not make Havdalah. Ishtali is he made like an accident. He made a little bit of an accident. V'toim, and he tasted something before making Havdalah. Havule kosa. Nevertheless, they brought to him a cup of wine, the avdil, and he made Havdalah. Right? So again, Rav Yirmiyah was at the house of Rav Asi. Rav Asi holds once you taste something, you don't make Havdalah, but yet he tasted something and he made Havdalah. Now, who do you think is going to get offended? Who do you think is going to get offended to this?
The guy who said, don't.
Oh, so you think Rav Asi gets offended because he is the one that holds contrary to what Rav Yirmiyah actually did. But I'm going to tell you a secret. That's not what happened. You know who got offended? His wife, right? Sometimes the woman gets more offended for the honor of their spouse than the spouse themselves.
She gets offended for you.
Yeah, she gets offended for you.
Yeah.
I've seen this happen a lot. Right? If you offend a man, he'll, whatever, fine, he'll move on. If you offend a man in front of his wife, forget it. Done.
Forget about it.
Forget about
You're
it.
done. Done. Right? Well, that's actually what happened over here. Amrle de Bisu. His wife stood up and said to her husband, you don't do this, which means if you taste it, you do not go and make Havdalah. In other words, like, what's this guy doing? No, what's this guy doing? Why? He's in my house and he's doing against my husband. Forget about it. What's going on here?
Yeah.
So Rav Asi had to diffuse the situation. Amalei Rav Yosef. Oh, hold on a second. Amar lo, Rav Asi said back to her, Shavke, leave him alone. He holds like his rabbi. In other words, Rabbi Yossi realized that there were different opinions and that Rav Yirmiyah was holding like his rabbi. And even though it was contrary to Rav Yossi did not feel offended that he was being his opinion was being rejected in his own house in front of his face. Yeah, a lot of people would. They get very offended. What? In my house, in front of my face, you're going to do something that is opposing opinion? Chutzpah. You're going to wear a MAGA hat in a person that's a Democrat? Forget it. Right? There was families. A son comes home with a MAGA hat. The mother's like, "That's it. You're out. Get out of here. I don't want you in my house." What do you mean? You're going to come in my house and wear opposing opinion? Chutzpah. Right? It was pretty wild. Right? There were days where it was extremely dangerous and sheesh. You ever wore a MAGA hat? No, me neither.
I don't like baseball hats.
You don't like baseball hat? Me neither, by the way. I used to when I was a teenager. We were a baseball cap. I think it looks very. How should I say it? I don't know. Like it doesn't look like prestigious, right? You never see a guy walking in a suit and tie and then like a baseball cap.
President Trump.
No, unless it's like President Trump, because he's trying to promote the MAGA movement, so he puts.
But also, you also normally don't see a guy pull up to Air Force One in a garbage truck.
Exactly.
Also does that.
He does.
He did that during the campaign. Because the other side said all of his people were garbage.
Yeah.
So he pulled up in a garbage truck that said Trump on the side of it.
Garbage truck.
Just
Sounds like garbage. Anyways, a lot of garbage. Yeah. They used to they call them white trash, It's trash.
it's messed up.
White trash. Yes.
It's the other half of my family.
It's white trash.
Oh yeah. Not a
What
special
so what's a
kind of
white
small.
what is a white that's not trash? Do they call is there a name for something?
I think that's just somebody who can afford bigger than a double wide trailer.
That we would call privileged, right?
Yeah.
Privileged.
Oh, regular.
You have white trash and then privileged. One of the two. If you're white, that's your choice. Okay.
I've been in worse than a double wide.
Huh?
I've been in worse than a double wide before.
I don't know what you're talking
When I was
about.
poor.
You were poor?
Oh yeah.
Why?
In college, and it came out. When I was in college, I had to get the crappiest apartments possible. I basically lived in like people's closets. I had no money, and then I came out with $70K.
Where did you put the bed when there's all the clothes in there?
I did have one apartment that it was. I had a twin size bed, and the room was just slightly bigger than the twin size bed, so I had to have the desk and sit on the bed next to the desk.
That was your whole thing.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Yeah, poor you. Anyways, Baruch Hashem, you got out of it. Now you live in YTD in the mansion and the castle that we have over here. Can I know that? All right. By the way, we do call this building the castle. You never know that yet?
That's the first I've heard of it.
That's the first. Well,
No one said that.
we didn't say that in a while. Yeah, when we got it, we called it the castle. It was known as the castle. This is known as the castle. Yeah. As a matter of fact, our previous location was like a basement-y type of, like, you have to go down the stairs. So we used to call it. When we moved here from there, I said we went from the dungeon to the castle.
How long have you had this?
This place is about a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah. Anyways, you don't even want to see the previous location, right? It was definitely not comparable to this one. Anyways, we hacked a Chainik over here. We need to get back onto the Gemara. All right? Good. Omar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says, Omar Shmuel, he says, Tam Einu Mekadosh, Tam Einu Mavdil. Rav Yosef says in the name of Shmuel that if you taste something, if you ate something before making Kiddush, you no longer make Kiddush. If you ate something before making Havdalah, you no longer make Havdalah. And that's that. All right? Good. V'Rabbo Omar Rav Nachman Omar Shmuel. However, Rabbo says in the name of Rav Nachman and in the name of Shmuel, which means there's an argument as to what the opinion of Shmuel says. He says, Tam Mekadosh v'Tam Mavdil, the complete opposite. So we have two quotes, both from Shmuel. And by the way, my name is also Shmuel. Nice to meet you. Again, we have two Amoraic sages arguing as to what the opinion of a third Amoraic sage was. Shmuel, by the way, Rav and Shmuel were some of the earliest Amoraic sages, and they held a lot of authority, even in the later Amoraic sages. Their opinions held very strong authority.
They were Tana?
No, they were not. As a matter of fact, Rav, they say, sometimes they say Rav, it was kind of the latest Tana as well. There is a certain situations where they consider Rav with the authority of a Tana, right?
The word Rav appears so many times. How do you know that this is particular Rav we're talking about?
Because it is. That's the way it is. It just is. Rav is a person, is the name of a particular character, lived in the early ages of the Amoraic
so if there's
period.
No other name after Rav, we know it's Rav.
Correct.
He's like the OG Rav.
He's like the Rav.
The primordial Rav.
Like in Chabad, when you say the Rebbe, right? You mean the Rebbe. It's like Rebbe. You don't have to like say which Rebbe, right? Whereas if you're talking to somebody in a different Hasidic movement, you'd have to say the Lubavitcher Rebbe, right? But if you're here in the Chabad movement, you say the Rebbe. That's it. All right. So again, there we go. The Omar Rava says Hilchasa, the final halachic ruling is as follows. The final halachic ruling, Tam Mekadosh v'Tam Mavdil, that you do make Kiddush and you do make Havdalah, even if you ate and tasted something. All right. And he also says Umi shaloi Kiddush be'erev Shabbos Mekadosh v'Hilach kol yom kulei ad mitzvei Shabbos. Mi shaloi hibul b'meisei shaya b'Shabbos mavdil v'Hilach kol haShabbos kulei. Right. So you basically say he's giving a list of the final rulings. Rava gives a list of the final rulings. He says if you ate or drank before making Havdalah, you still, in fact, do Havdalah. You don't skip Havdalah just because you made a mistake and ate, etc. I just want to share a brief Tosfos, and then I think we're going to go straight to Chavrusa time. I know it's a bit early, but I think that, you should get to work and learning it on your own. And I wanted to share an interesting Tosfos. There's a few short Tosfos in this week, and I'm going to share some of them. There's a Tosfos here that says a very interesting thing. There's a quote in the Talmud that if a person is righteous, a person's a tzaddik, they will never eat or drink anything. They will never consume anything that is not kosher. It actually says that. Whoa. It even says that the animal of a tzaddik will not end up eating something that is prohibited to them. There are certain things that are prohibited, etc. For example, stolen food. Like if my animal eats in somebody else's field, that is a form of stealing. Yeah. And a tzaddik's animal won't even consume something that's prohibited. So the Tosfos asks, hold on a second. Rabbi Yirmiyah, if we remember the story, Rabbi Yirmiyah ate before Havdalah. That means he consumed something that was prohibited. He was not allowed to eat. How could that be? That seems to contradict that rule that a tzaddik has this spiritual protection. Yeah, there's actually a famous story where they brought a particular tzaddik. They brought him a cup of milk, and that milk was not chalav Yisrael. It wasn't at the kosher standards of many people don't eat not chalav Yisrael. So he brought them a cup, and he wasn't drinking it. So they asked him, why you're not drinking it? He says, not drinking what? He says, the milk that we brought you. He says, what milk? What milk did you brought? He didn't see it. He didn't see it. And then at some point in this conversation, somebody ran and, be careful, this is not Chalav Yisrael. And then, you know what he said? He says, it says in Shulchan Aruch, Chalav shechalvu goy, milk that was milked by a non-Jew and a Jew doesn't see it. So if the way that it's worded in the Shulchan Aruch, you can suggest that a Jew just doesn't see it. So if you're a proper Jew, you just won't see something that is not kosher. You just won't see it. It just won't be there. Right? Again, anything that's not kosher. So how could it be that Rabbi Yirmiyah, such a holy, great sage, actually consumed something that he wasn't allowed to consume?
But it's the same words that are used in the halacha to say that a Jew needs to see the milk when it's being milked to make it halal Israel.
Yeah. That again, he
translating the words in a different way.
Yes, that shows that he doesn't even see it. Wow. Yeah. Anyway, so the Tosfos answers as follows: that rule only applies when the substance is forbidden, not when it is a permitted substance, but it was in a time that it was prohibited. Tosfos basically answers that this rule that tzaddikim are protected from eating something from consuming something that's prohibited is limited to a prohibited substance. Only if the actual food is prohibited, then a tzaddik won't ever come to eat from it. They have this divine protection. However, if the food itself is permitted to be eaten, however, the time itself, you're not allowed to do it. So that the tzaddik is not protected in that way. Meaning the food that he ate was kosher. The problem is that he wasn't allowed to eat it because he didn't make Havdalah. So he says there the protection for whatever reason doesn't work for a tzaddik. All right. Kenai Nahara. Thanks for joining us. Any questions we have here? It was actually a very slow day, both from the class and from the people online. Thank you for whoever joined us. Sunday, people are like, they just finished the weekend, they're tired, they're going to sleep, and etc. I don't know. Anyways, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Anybody online, if you haven't yet subscribed, do so now. On the top left-hand corner, there is a QR code that you can scan and join our WhatsApp group so that you can be informed when we start classes, etc. We even just put it on the big screen. And do we have actually some people don't know how to use the QR codes, like me. I would not know how to use that QR code. How would I use the QR code?
Basically, you just point your phone camera at it, and it opens the link in a browser.
If I just point my camera at it, it'll do it automatically?
Yeah,
try. What do you mean? How do I do it? No, okay, I go over here. I'm gonna, I try to take a regular picture?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you don't even have to take a picture, probably.
Huh?
Well, yeah, go and open it as if you were going to take a picture.
Okay, I'm going to open my camera. Hold on. I'm going to open, here we go. My camera, as if I'm going to take a picture. Hold on.
And then just point it at the QR code.
All right, point it at the QR code. Yeah, I'm doing
You should
that.
be able to see. You don't have to.
Yeah, I'm pointing it at the QR code.
Sometimes, yeah,
Not
you
doing
have to
anything.
get the focus on there. Uh-oh.
No, not doing anything for me. Sorry.
I need a QR scanner app, but
Yeah, maybe
most
any
people-
special app. Most people are smarter than me on technology, and they know how to do it.
Just the camera.
Yeah.
And then now the link popped up at the very bottom. And
Oh,
now
yeah?
David's going to click that. And then boom, it'll bring me up to
Cool.
the website.
it says somebody scanned it.
Oh, good. Well, you just did.
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, that was you.
That was
Yeah.
me.
All right. Kenai Nahara, thank
I'll put the
you.
link in the chat also, and it's
Oh,
also in the
good.
description.
It's in the chat in the description. We'll see you tomorrow. Bezrat Hashem. Sei gesund. Yeah? Good.